Thank you for joining us. Let's try and get some optimism here. So Shahed, you just had an amazing exit announced, not closed yet. A company called Loom, $975 million. Incredible in this environment. Why don't you sort of introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here today. So my name is Shahed Khan. I am one of the founders of Loom. For those that don't know Loom is, we build software to allow people to communicate more effectively. And we do that through this asynchronous video format, which records your camera, your audio, and your screen. We started the company in 2015, and just prior to our exit, we had 25 million users globally across 500,000 workplaces. And yeah, just really excited for the outcome.
And just by complete accident, the guy next to him is the guy who actually sort of funded him. How funny. Niko.
Fun indeed. So Shahed, we're very grateful for the exit. Thank you. Fingers crossed. Very excited to be here. I'm Niko Bonatsos. I'm a partner at General Catalyst. Our mission is to invest in positive and powerful change that endures. We're a multi-stage venture capital firm. We invest about 70% of our capital in the US, the bulk of the rest in Europe. And we partner with ridiculously ambitious founders like Shahed, Joe, and help them build category-defining companies.
So I kind of prefaced our discussion with, hey, it's super hard out there for entrepreneurs to execute, to sell, to raise capital. Unfortunately, we've seen over the past couple of days, couple of weeks, very large, supposedly successful companies, Convoy, Oliveira, sort of shut down abruptly because they kind of run out of cash. So it's really, really tough. So Niko first, how do you guys sort of think about this market? You're multi-stage, so you can invest your capital across, seed, early, late, whereas I'm stuck, I'm seed, so I have to go there. How do you guys sort of think about the market?
Sure. So at the very early stage, where you sit, like pre-seed, seed, I think it's a great time right now because you have the next generation of founders, the Gen Zers, who are coming into the market. They're kind of oblivious to everything that you touched upon before because they've never seen a market cycle, and they all live in their heads in the future. So the technical ones will have a shot at bringing it to life. So first check, great times. If you have to raise a seed 2, seed 3, seed 4 round, that all these rounds were happening in 2020, 21 because there were so many emerging funds or so many new GPs joining existing funds, that market is practically frozen right now. At the Series A stage, at GC, we invest in about 15 Series A and Series B early rounds every year. I think the bar is higher now. So all of us, have learned from some of our irrational, exuberant behavior, and we tried to do more in software. This means fewer tech-enabled or weird, stuff. So if you're a category leader or you have product market fit, the Series A or the Series B very likely will happen. If not, you'd better be in AI, i.e. the hot space of, the moment in time we're in, because otherwise, good luck. You're in the business of buying, time. At the growth stage, anything that's over like a $30 million check from us, I think now the market is better than where it was a year and a half ago, because some founders and board members have basically received the message of how public multiples look like. And also they have less runway than what they had before, so they're more willing to transact. So there are some transactions happening, but not as many as, in previous years.
Mm-hmm. From top of your head, do you know how many sort of Series A, Series Bs you've done this year versus like 15, 16 previous time?
The number of, the 15 number is like for the whole year. We're pretty much on target.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Good to hear. See, it's not that bad. So Shahed, you shared with me that raising your first round was really sort of challenging for you, and unfortunately, this is something that entrepreneurs are going to face. So any sort of hard lessons that you would want to share?
Yeah, so I've noticed that like even in this market, there's a lot of companies going out and raising their first round of financing for, anywhere from like an $8 to $15 million valuation. And I like to reflect on our first round of financing. Our first deal was done at a $4.25 million cap, and we had pitched. This was at the beginning of the first half of 2016. And I don't know if either of you guys remember.
Market,
yeah, there was a lot of pullback from the investor market for startups, and it's very similar to what's kind of going on right now. And we pitched roughly 75 investors, of which I believe like just over 60 of them politely in one way or another said no, and the rest didn't even bother responding to the email. So we really had to change our fundraising strategy at that time. And that was right around the time when we had relaunched our product for the third time. We made some changes to it. And that's when we first saw our first tick of, 3,000 people had signed up within the first 24 hours. But I remember our first investor was someone who was Airbnb-ing my room in San Mateo, gave us $5,000. And then our second investor was his friend who gave us $10,000. So we were really scrapping for cash at that point because our burn was, it was maybe a couple $1,000s a month. But it was, really kind of
pulling. Runway.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We were really pulling teeth to kind of get our first round together. And then I would say like once we had launched the third time, that third iteration of Loom, what ultimately became Loom, we had our first investor, 1517, kind of come in with a big lead investment. I believe it was $200,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back in the, now it's not uncommon to see 3, 4, 5, $10 million seed round for AI companies. Like back in the day, it was like, a few $100,000.
Yeah.
Did it ever sort of become easier to operate, to scale, to raise capital for you? Like, what was your trajectory? When did it become sort of easier to do things?
I do think for companies, for companies that are obviously growing, right, it certainly to some extent becomes easier. And it also becomes easier on the founders because you've kind of been through that circuit the first time. All you're kind of used to hearing is no. And then you just really need that first person to say yes. And then slowly those kind of yeses start to roll in. You learn how to run a better process after you've kind of done it, horribly like we did the first time. And then I would say it certainly becomes easier to operate, but I would answer that almost in a different light where it's very different, right? So you kind of start a company, you're building a product, and that's kind of all you're really doing for the first year or 2 years. And then as you start to hire people, you kind of transition as founders to not just running product anymore, but like building a company. So I think it kind of shifts in a way where, you kind of still want to keep your hands on the product. You kind of want to keep that cadence. I think looking back at, the 8 years of Loom, the time where we were shipping product the fastest was when we were probably 16 people. And we didn't hire for, I would say about 6 months. And we were just on a really fast release cadence. We're also stripping product out of, we're stripping features out of our product as much as we were releasing. So we were just making sure that we were constantly in front of users, constantly in front of customers, and growing and watching. And we also did this one thing early on where we, as a team, we read Nir Eyal's book called Hooked, and that kind of gave us this like, we were speaking a similar language as a team, as a product team. So like, our designers at the time knew like what acquisition and how that's different from activation and how that's different from retention and revenue. So I think that really helped us and kind of really sped us up in our product development lifecycle.
It's the famous two pizza rule, right? You get maximum velocity with a team that can eat on 2 pizza.
Yeah.
Depends on the slices, but it's true. Niko, so like me, you sit on a bunch of startup boards. You have to adjust, based on the situation. But how do you think about what I mentioned, this notion of balance between runway and growth?
Yeah, so you're either in the business of like buying time to showcase that you can grow or you have a business, or ideally both, And if you're not in the business of buying time, then you can capitalize on whatever is really working or raise more capital to extend your lead. So our companies, the way we look at it today for anything we invested in the post-Series A stage, we want them to have cash for at least a couple of years. If they don't have cash for a couple of years, then changes need to happen pretty much imminently to get to that period of time so they can execute. For the ones that have cash for a couple of years and they're category leaders, expanding, whatever they're building, they're in a very fortunate position. And about 20% of our portfolio companies fall into that bucket. What we're trying to do is make sure that if we know that we're not going to be major investors in a future round of a company, because we don't believe in their space any longer, or we don't see how this company could create a meaningful outcome, we actually tell the founders that, look, don't count on us to be a major player moving forward. We encourage you to either pivot and do something else, or we encourage you to try and sell right now, vis-a-vis trying to be there like 6 months before, oh shit, we need you to put in money, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's super important to be super clear about your intentions. And founders have to have, unfortunately, a very tough discussion whenever they start thinking, well, going to raise, but you guys are going to bridge us, right? Right? And you need to know.
And this happens like once a month now. And sometimes founders, they don't send the investor updates. I thought in my mind they had cash for 9 months, but actually they have for like 3 months. And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the oh shit moment. So, Shahed, I want to spend a few minutes on how you guys came to the decision to actually accept this offer from Atlassian. What you read in some of the blogs or on Twitter is, oh, but you guys had a post money of 1.3 billion last time you raised, and so it's a failure, which is bullshit. Let's be clear. Like getting close to $1 billion in this environment is incredibly successful. So, props. How do you guys sort of decide to go for it?
Yeah, I would say the relationship with Atlassian was a unique one, where I mentioned earlier that in our first day launching Loom back in 2016, we had 3,000 people sign up, and part of that cohort of users were a handful of Atlassian employees. So Atlassian has kind of been like in the Loom aura since the very beginning. And as time went on, the Atlassian as an organization kind of grew on Loom. And we built a deeper partnership with them. Loom, you can use Loom within Trello, within a series of Atlassian products. So there's always kind of this like unique relationship with that company. And Loom was in a very comfortable position. We had roughly 12 years of runway prior to this outcome.
Not 12 months, 12 years.
And that was a result of us acting very early to adjusting the company. And we were also at fault early on for growing way beyond our means in 2021, like every other company in our cohort was. So we had to look ourselves in the mirror and kind of make some adjustments to how we were spending money, how we were growing. And the feedback that I give to a lot of founders, even at this stage, is convert your MRR into ARR. Find ways to kind of extend your runway, buy time, so that you could start playing more offense when everyone else is playing defense. But yeah, Atlassian, we just had this unique relationship with them. They came to us, a couple months ago, and they're like, "Hey, we want to deepen this partnership," and we kind of talked.
Code word for "I want to buy you."
And we talked through what that would look like, and in a very short period, that deal came together.
That's awesome. And everybody around the board was happy with the outcome, even the people would only just get money back?
Yeah, I think it was a unanimous yes across the board, especially in this market, especially for it being predominantly cash. Everyone was excited, and it was a wonderful outcome for everyone involved.
So Niko, that's a great outcome for you guys, right? Money, getting a bunch of cash that you can either recycle or get back to investors is awesome. But he wasn't a fund maker. So how do you guys sort of think about this?
Freaking love it. Every dollar counts. Thank you, Shahed. Thank you to the Loom team. If only, every outcome can be like that, especially in today's market. And we're going to be hiring the Loom founders to serve as advisors for all of our other portfolio companies and help them with M&A.
That's awesome. So any practical advice, Shahed, based on your experience of being frugal and then scaling, maybe scaling a bit too much and then cutting back, and like what would you tell entrepreneurs, or what do you tell entrepreneurs who meet with you for coffee in this environment?
Yeah, I think from the very early days of Loom, the one thing that kind of this hard lesson that we had learned after building for a year and it not really going anywhere, was you can launch your product as many times as you want. You can change it, you can pivot it. No one really outside of your company is paying attention. Like we're kind of a class example of that. We launched several times before we finally found that inflection period. I would say that's certainly one thing, but through this journey of starting a company and operating it, it's certainly a very lonely period, and especially in a period like this where you had the very highs of 2020 and 2021, and you're like kind of going through this like severe hangover after being drunk for 2 years, and going through the lows of 2020, late 2021 and 2022, and into 23. You kind of want to surround yourself around like what we individually had as founders, which was like our founder kind of network. So we're very fortunate, to be building in San Francisco. We were one stage below Figma, and Dylan was another Teal fellow. I met him through the fellowship, and through that, we became friends, and he later became an investor in the company. But more important than his capital was just like his experience and learning like what did he do that he felt like he made mistakes in, and what can we learn from him. And I think really surrounding yourself with other founders who are either a stage or 2 stages in front of you, really kind of making those relationships really pays off in the long term. And I think that's what really helped us kind of get through the hard period of 21 and 22.
Which is awesome, because remember that Dylan is the CEO of Figma, which was acquired by Adobe for $20 billion. Now they're trying to get this deal approved, but amazing outcome as well.
Yeah.
So Niko, a couple of minutes left. Are there any sort of, besides AI, are there any sectors that you find sort of more interesting, exciting than others? Or are you sort of just looking at every deal like without really thinking about, hey, this is our sector strategy, this is where we're going to focus?
Yeah, so at GC, for anything Series A or later, we want 80% of the time for us to catalyze that investment, because we believe in that space where we've been tracking that company for a while, and they're inflecting right now. So in terms of what I personally spend my time on, is spending time with technical founders who are building products for themselves with other technical people. And I do think consumer internet is coming back, because the next generation of founders, or on the younger side, they go online, they check the face of the internet. It was built by geriatric millennials like myself, and they're like, oh my God, this makes no sense. So some of those people who are technical will bring that future to life sooner rather than later. The world also has changed, so at GC we're actively investing in what we call internally global resilience, which includes a fair amount of defense tech, gov tech, some climate tech, because the needs of the planet, especially in this new geopolitical environment, are much different than what they were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so these are 2 areas we're very actively investing.
You found Snap, right? If I recall.
Yeah, we were early investors in Snap, yeah.
So it's interesting because this day and age, you sort of figure that SaaS is really kind of all the rage, but it's interesting that you mentioned that consumer internet is back.
It's coming back, yeah. This is one of the contrarian statements that you can make now, and hopefully we'll be right in 2-3 years' time.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this was useful, and remember, we're optimistic. Amazing company is going to be built in this environment. It's just hard. So thank you guys.
Thank you.